Hey everyone, I wanted to make another short video on some other Samoan language concepts. For those of you that are watching this for the first time, I'm making Samoan language videos, and the idea being that hopefully these are helpful to those that are coming from an English-speaking background and are trying to learn Samoan. So obviously I'm not Samoan, so I'm coming from being a native English speaker, having learned Samoan as a missionary when I was 19 and 20 years old. And then I later went and taught it to other missionaries going out into the field. Anyway, before I forget all of it as I get older, I thought I'd put this out on YouTube. Hopefully it's helpful to some of you. If it is, give me a comment or a thumbs up or subscribe to let me know that these things are useful. Anyway, today's topic is going to be on what I'm calling common homophones in Samoan. And I look at this as probably being a two-part video. I'm just going to cover two classes, I guess, of homophones today around ones that include just the letter I and others that include the letter I and the letter A, which seems like a really narrow subset, but sometimes these really short words and how many different ways they're being used can sometimes trip up the person who's new at speaking Samoan. So hopefully this is helpful. And like I said, if this is your first time tuning in, I would highly recommend that you check out the playlist above, where I've got a lot more fundamental videos to kind of cover pronunciation, alphabet, sentence structure, things that are going to be much more helpful to you to do first rather than this one. So if that's the case, I would go ahead and stop this video and go check out that list. Anyway, without further ado, so today I just want to talk about what I'm going to call real homophones and then pseudo homophones. And then, like I mentioned before, I'll get into just two specific cases of what I think will be relatively common homophones. And then I'll do another video where I get into another few specific cases. If there's more that you guys want to cover, by all means, leave some comments in the below. I'll check those out. And if there's enough interest, I'll definitely make some different videos, target on whatever it is you guys are thinking that will be helpful. All right, so with that being said, when I say real homophone, well, first of all, a homophone in general is just a word that sounds like another word, but has a different meaning. And I'm calling that sort of the real homophone. And in English, some examples of that are there, and there. And so I've got three different spellings there. They all sound exactly the same in English, even though they're spelled differently. They sound the same, and they mean different things. So the trick is in Samoan, real homophones are always spelled exactly the same. There is never a difference. And that's because Samoan is a very phonetic language. The written language came pretty late in terms of history to Samoan language. And so consequently, the way you speak Samoan, the way you spell Samoan is a lot more coherent than what it is in English, where writing kind of evolved much earlier. Anyway, that being said, so that's what a real homophone is. It sounds exactly the same, but it means different things. A pseudo homophone is a word that has a very similar spelling, or maybe even has a very similar, maybe not very similar, but maybe it has a similar sound, or maybe there are very nuanced differences in the pronunciation, but to the non-native speaker, they might sound exactly the same, even though they're different. But to, like I said, the Parangi or to the non-native speaker, they might sound like the same exact word. And so I'm throwing them both in here. A native speaker of Samoan will look at some of these words and be like, these are totally different. How do you guys even think that these are homophones? Because they're not really homophones. But because they use the same letters with some nuanced differences, I'm going to throw them in this lesson. The things that really kind of cause that in Samoan, this phenomenon of pseudo homophones, is that Samoan has a glottal stop and it's got a macron, and those are concepts that we don't have in English. And so I don't think our ears are always trained to hear them, or certainly to speak them, or to differentiate. So maybe that's what's happening with you, maybe not. And that's the case, great, then this won't be so helpful. But for some of you that are having that trouble, hopefully this is a little bit of help in differentiating those specific words, but also just getting the concepts and the nuances of how those different grammar concepts or sort of phonetic differences are, I guess, manifest, for lack of better words. All right, so first we're going to start with those homophones that are just basically the letter I. And if you haven't seen the pronunciation video yet, the letter I in Samoan is pronounced E. And so I've got here 3 different ways of using or spelling a word with just the letter I. So here we have E, no glottal, no macron. Here we have E, where I've got a glottal in the beginning of the word, E. And I've got E, where I've got a glottal and a macron. So with that being said, I'll cover sort of just the plain E first. No glottal, no macron. So when you see just the letter I or hear just the letter I or just the sound E in Samoan, it can mean a couple different things. So number one, it denotes position. So think of the English equivalent to being in, at, or on. And an example of that might be nofo ilalo, nofo ilalo. Nofo means to sit. E is that to, at, on, that position type of word. And then lalo is the direction of down. So it literally translates to sit down. Another example might be olo'tina io ilifali oloa. Olo'tina io ilifali oloa. So here we've actually used that letter E or word E twice. In olo'tina means my mom. Io means is at, over there. So o is kind of over there. Ilifali oloa. Ilifali oloa means at the store. So my mom is over there at the store. Anyway, hopefully a couple of examples help you kind of cement how that's being used. You can also use the word E to mean with, as long as it's sort of the instrumental version of the word with. So an example of that might be Pe'ete fiatusi I se peni po se penitala. Pe'ete fiatusi I se peni po se penitala. And what that would mean is Pe is just a word that marks a question. You don't always have to use it, but sometimes you do. Ete fia means you want to, and then tusi is the word for to write. So do you want to write ise peni with a pen? Or po'o means or, se penitala. Se is and then penitala means pencil. So anyway, you can. That's what I mean when you say with. And I have another lesson on using with, using the word E versus the word ma, which is the accompaniment form of with. Okay, E, where you've got a glottal in the front, E. So it's very similar to E, except instead of denoting position, it'll denote direction. So basically think of E, you use that with verbs that don't require sort of physical travel. And then E, you use with verbs that do require physical travel when you're talking about translating that verb to the prepositional phrase. So the example here would be Saualu ili faleoloa. Saualu ili faleoloa. Saualu ili faleoloa. All right. Sa is a past tense marker. O means I. It's a descriptive pronoun. Alu is our verb there. It means to go. And then E means to, because to go, when you're going somewhere, you're clearly physically, geographically moving from one place to another. So we say E instead of E. Le faleoloa. The, le is the, faleoloa is store. So notice that in the example above, let me erase some of this stuff. Notice in the example above, I said ile faleoloa, and that meant my mom is at the store. So I didn't say my mom is going to the store or is on her way to the store. She's just at there. Here, I'm saying ile faleoloa, and that's because I'm going to the store. So slightly different, but you can tell they're kind of related. All right, and then the real homophone here is when E is used as a component of a pronoun. So I have another video on pronouns in Samoan, but you may have noticed that sometimes a glottal mark letter I, so E, comes before another word, and together they are an emphatic pronoun. And so again, I'd refer you back to that lesson because I can't all redo it here, but you'll see that happen. So an example might be imato, which means all of us except for the person being spoken to. So it's an exclusive plural pronoun. And or ilaua would be another one, which means those two over there. You could say ilato, itato, imaua, itaua. So go back to the other video if you want to see examples of that, but I just goes to show that you'll see that word and it means something different. All right, our last example here, well, last case here is E with a macron and a glottal stop in the beginning. So number one, it is short for yes. So ioi. Ioi is yes in Samoan. And if you just, a short version of that, so instead of saying yes in English, you could say yeah. Well, the equivalent of that is I in Samoan. So you could say, hey, are you hungry? Te fiai. You could say I, I'm hungry. You know, make sure to raise your eyebrows as well. It could also mean here. So for example, someone might say to you, Saui I. That's kind of confusing because I've got a bonus. I've got two of these right next to each other. So this first letter I is the two, or sort of the one that's denoting direction, like I mentioned above here. So that first letter I is denoting direction. The second letter I is actually the demonstrative here. So sao means to come. E, the first E is to, and the second E is here. Sao I. Sao I. All right, so hopefully that was pretty confusing. And then the last example is, and this is less common, but it could also mean a squeal or a yell as a noun, or it could be the verb to squeal or to yell. So an example might be, Sa'i na tamaiti ona orengata. Sa'i na tamaiti ona orengata. Sa is our past tense marker. I is our verb there, is to squeal or to yell. Na tamaiti, na is, it means those. Tamaiti are children. Ona o is our way of saying because. Lengata is the snake. Anyway, long example. Anyway, hopefully that's helpful in that it shows you, man, one letter, the letter I all by itself, whereas in English we might think, hey, that's one word. We've just shown that it's got, 7 different meanings, and some of them probably they all might sound exactly the same to you. If you're more of like, if you grew up in a Samoan speaking home and maybe you're a little bit better able to differentiate with these glottal stops and these macrons and things like that, you might say, well, hey, there's actually only 3 different words and they might have 7 different meanings altogether. But to a lot of Palangi speakers or English speaking native speakers, these all sound like the same. So they are actually slightly different. So just keep an eye out for them and try and be careful in your own pronunciation to make sure you're kind of giving it that punch when you say a glottal mark and making sure you're extending that sound when you say a macron. All right, so now we're moving on to the IA homophones, and you can see here that we've actually got 7 different ways that just the letters I and the letter A can be pronounced, and they're only being differentiated by glottal stops and macrons. So we'll go ahead and start up here in the top left with ia, no glottals, no macrons, and we've actually got 3 different meanings that this can take on. So number 1 is ia is a third person singular pronoun, meaning it means his or him, her, or it, he, she, or it. And in the sentence I have as an example would be sasauia yatiau. Sasauia yatiau. Sa is our tense marker. Sau is the verb to come. Ia again it means him or he, she, or it. In this case, yate, I'll cover that in a minute, but that basically means to, and then au is another pronoun which means me. So this all translates to he came to me, or she came to me, or it came to me. Next one is ia can mean these, so it's kind of like a demonstrative for plural kind of objects. An example might be e ave ma'au ia fai, e ave ma'au ia fai. And that translates to, see, A is our tense marker. Ave is a verb for to take. Ma means with, an accompaniment form of with. Au is, again, it means I. And then ia means these. and fa'i means bananas. So altogether, this means basically it means, can I take these bananas with me? E havi ma'u ia fa'i. Let's see here. Then the last meaning of this particular form of IA is an adverb, and you basically put this after a verb, and it has the meaning of doing it right away. So someone might say to you, "Sawia, sawia," it means come over here right now, because saw means to come, ia basically means right away. All right, the next version of IA, basically the way it's differentiated is it's got a glottal stop, but it comes like right after the letter A, which is not usual. Normally you see glottal stops preceding a vowel. And here we don't technically, we're kind of basically just stopping the A sound short. And what this will translate to, so it kind of means like, yeah, that's how it would sound, yeah. So it kind of just stops a little bit abruptly. And really, you hear this, it's almost just like a sound that gets made. I don't even know if it translates to a word, but you hear it all the time. And basically, it's what you say before you're making an announcement. So if you're trying to get people's attention, you're saying, okay, let's get started, everybody. Okay, let's go. You'd say, yeah, olea wharitonu. That's the example I have here. Yeah, olea wharitonu. Basically, the yeah part is, okay, I'm going to talk now. And then olea wharitonu just means we're going to do the plan. Basically, it just kind of means we got to get going. You might hear, if you're at like an event, oftentimes they'll start with prayer. And so you might hear people say, yeah, olea whailotu. They'll say, yeah, getting everyone's attention. And then olea whailotu means I will go ahead and say the prayer, and then they'll launch right into praying. So again, it's kind of a way of making an announcement. I would just listen for this so you can kind of know how to place it. Moving down to, let's see here, ia. Ia is an imperative or a command marker. And basically, it takes the place of a tense marker, and it conveys the sense of making whatever you're saying be a command. So in this, the example I have here is ia aluloa, ia aluloa. So again, the translate, ia is our command or imperative marker. Alu is to go. Loa is it's actually just like ia. It means do it right away. So ia aluloa means get out of here. Get out of here right now. Moving on to ya. And I'm going to cover ya and ya at the same time. Again, these are very subtle differences, and I don't know that I'm doing the best job pronouncing them, but it's ya and ya. So these are very similar to e and e, and basically one is denoting position, and the other one is denoting direction. And when you use ya instead of e, when your prepositional phrase includes a proper noun, as opposed to a common noun or a sort of an object. And the same thing with ia. You use that again when your prepositional phrase includes a proper noun. So the examples I have here are oteita ya mele, oteita ya mele. That means I am angry at mele. So o is the pronoun for I. Te is a tense marker. Ita is to be angry. And then ya mele means at mele or at Mary. The example I have here is Saia alu ia Ioane. Saia, again, ia means him, he, she, or it. Alu is to go. Ya, again, is to. Ioane is John. So basically this means he went to John. Okay, moving on. We'll go to ia. And you hear this all the time as well. It's kind of like yeah. You hear it all the time. It's almost just like a sound. And you basically use this word to get everyone to start at the same time. It's almost like counting to 3. All right, let's everyone go on the count of 3. 1, 2, 3, go. That's the same thing, same concept in Samoan, except you use ia. And so the example I have here is wasaunita ato e pepese. Basically what this phrase would mean is ua sauni. Ua is a tense marker. Sauni means prepared. Tato is a pronoun for all of us. E, again, is a tense marker. Pepese is to sing. It's a verb to sing. So the first part of this phrase is the question, hey, are we all ready to sing? And then the guy's saying, uolele. Uolele means great, it's all good. And then he would say, iya, and basically right after that, everyone would start singing together. So think of like a choir director needing to have everyone start together. Maybe you're starting a race, or I don't know if you'd start a race this way, but it's basically just a way to start everyone together in unison. And then finally, we have ia, and hopefully all of you can tell the difference in that word because the glottal is in between I and A. But ia is just the name of a fish. And you can't see the example I wrote down here, but the example would be e ai ia o lua. E ai ia o lua. And basically that just means, do you two eat fish? Anyway, that's the end of this video. Hopefully this was helpful. Again, I don't think it'd be helpful to necessarily go through and memorize all these different words because they're not necessarily the most helpful words in what you want to communicate. But what I hope is illustrated is that, hey, there's a lot of nuanced differences because of those glottal marks and those macrons, and it might be hard for you to hear the difference, but the meaning is actually very different. So it's beyond just regular homophones like what we have in English. It's these pseudo homophones that can sometimes trip you up as well, and it kind of compounds what might be a problem for you. So again, I'll make a second installment of this, and again, I just think it's helpful to kind of illustrate, oh wow, I didn't realize the nuance here that I may be needing to be paying attention to a little more closely. Anyway, if this was helpful to you, please give it a thumbs up, maybe like or subscribe, or definitely leave a comment. I definitely want to hear if these things are helpful, or if you know of something else that, hey, I'd love it if you did a video on X, or just let me know. Appreciate it. All right, take care, everyone. Bye.